tend to mean something down the road. House Foreign Affairs Committee member, Republican Congressman from Illinois, Adam Kinzinger. Congressman, good to have you.
Thanks. Thanks. Good to be here.
What do you make of this? I mean, we've seen a good deal handshaking and hugging on the part of our president and the French president. A little less with Angela Merkel. We saw something very similar between the North and South Korean leaders. Do you put much stock in those kind of images?
I do, actually. So President Trump, and the times I've met with him last year or this year, he's very much a relationships guy. He likes to have a personal connection with people. So I think the fact that he and Macron seem to get along so well has big payoffs in terms of the ability to have a relationship that goes beyond just being buddies. It actually leads into a better relationship between the countries. It gives you an ease in which to talk to some of these leaders, as I've had conversations with leaders before. It doesn't necessarily mean, for instance, if he has a colder relationship with Angela Merkel, that somehow our relationship with Germany is going to fall apart. But then if you look at just the symbolism and the reality of what's going on in Korea, I think we have to be very careful. I have a lot of people that sound like we've already signed some kind of a deal with the North, and we haven't. But this is a very good beginning step to show that the two sides are willing to try to hammer out something that's eluded us for decades.
Well, they seem to be further along in the North and South Korea situation, to your point, Congressman, than we were led to believe. That's why some of these cosmetic things come to be discussed, because their friendliness might have been, precipitated by phone calls and going through how they were going to meet and greet each other when they did get together, each tipping into the other country briefly before ongoing discussions. As if they paved the way for something for the president. Do you worry that the expectations get ahead of their skis, so to speak?
Sure. That's a big worry of mine. I think this is great. I think this is historic, and I think we need to recognize that. What my concern is that this stalls, or somehow we don't come to an agreement. There may be some points. I mean, we're going to have to be in the North to confirm that they don't have these nuclear weapons. And what my concern is people will be so let down at that point. And I'll tell you, you can't get any higher in diplomacy than what is going on now. So I think we're at a moment where we either get a deal in Korea, which I think is actually going to happen. I'm optimistic about it. But if we don't, then I think really the next step is military action. There's really no way to escalate diplomatically from where we are now. So this is amazing. This is one of these things we could look back and it could be the equivalent of, something along the lines of the Berlin Wall falling, which I remember when I was just a young guy, and or it could be pretty disappointing. But I think the president has done a fantastic job to drive North Korea, and he should get a ton of credit for what's happening.
I'm thinking more like Nixon in China. I mean, it could be that historic. Again, if things pan out. Now, the president has indicated, Congressman, that if he doesn't see this going that well, he'll up and leave the table. I don't know what that would mean if maybe the North were resisting, inspections on certain sites. Other countries have in deals we've made with Libya, to Saddam Hussein in Iraq, that it sounds good on paper, it's committed to on paper, and then they don't allow it. Is that the kind of stuff you think he's talking about? Is that the kind of stuff you want to see?
Yeah, I want to see the president being really tough. I mean, back when the Iran nuclear deal was happening, and I remember Secretary Kerry was before our committee, and he said that he was willing to walk away from the deal. I don't know if I said this publicly or just thought it, but I go, there is no way that administration is going to walk away from Iran, and Iran knows it, and they're going to extract a pound of flesh on every issue, and they have, and we have a really bad deal in Iran right now. I think the president being willing to put the military out there, doing what he did with sanctions, bringing our allies and our adversaries together on this common issue, and then saying we have to have an agreement that works or I will walk away. If Kim Jong-un isn't taking that seriously, and I think he is by the fact of what he's been doing, if he isn't taking that seriously, that's at his own detriment. I think the president means it.
It's very clear. It's looking, at least to me, sir, that he's going to walk away from this Iran deal. You mentioned that. And largely on the idea that he just doesn't trust it. Was a lousy deal, good for the Iranians, not so good for the rest of the world, specifically the United States. He got a little pushback from the foreign leaders meeting with him this week. Is it your sense, though, that it's going to be tough to get Iran to budge at this stage because they've got their money, billions of it? A lot of it, as the president pointed out, that came on airplanes and crates. What's going to compel them to do anything?
So that's going to be a difficult question. The problem is, initially to get to this deal, which is a bad deal, but to get there, you had all of our allies creating sanctions, and it put a lot of pressure on Iran. Now they have their money. Our allies, Macron said he's not getting out of the JCPOA, the deal. He said he's going to stay in. But my concern is this. They all speak a good line to say, well, we do want to negotiate these other issues, ballistic missiles, activities in the region, etc. But I don't know how you compel Iran to the table without sanctions, without some kind of a stick out there again. And if our allies are saying, we're going to buy it 100% by this deal until 2025, when basically it goes away and they can rush to nukes, I don't see what the stick is in there to compel Iran's behavior in other areas. So I think the president is being smart with his team. Mike Pompeo is a good friend of mine. I sat with him on committee for a long time. He knows what he's doing. So I trust this team on that.
Congressman, thanks for taking the time on a Saturday. We always appreciate it.